everyone. My name is Joyce Raimondo, and I am here at the Pollock-Krasner House and Study Center. As most of you know, we're a national landmark located in East Hampton, 100 miles east of New York City. And we, of course, are the home and studio of the abstract expressionist artists Jackson Pollock and Lee Krasner. Right now, I'm standing in their home, and we do have changing exhibitions in the house, which is where I'm standing. And today I am very proud to present David Slater, whose work is on view. And David will speak to us about his work and his memories that are associated with the work. And the exhibition is called Remembering Wounded Knee. So say hello to David. And David also works here, which is wonderful. And David, you were also the recipient of a Pollock-Krasner Award, right?
Yes, yes.
And what year was that?
That was about 2021, 22. I can't remember exactly.
And those are grants given to artists thanks to Lee Krasner under the Pollock-Krasner Foundation. The foundation gives grants to artists to help with their living expenses, to help with a project, and it's still active today, and that's part of Lee's amazing legacy. So if you're interested in obtaining a grant, go to pkf.org. It's separate from the house. Okay, so today, let's start, David. Give us just a little overview of this exhibition.
Okay.
It's Wounded Knee. What is Wounded Knee?
Wounded Knee was a place in 1890 where the Indian nations had been pretty much subdued and driven onto reservations. And after the Custer massacre, there was a leader. Well, I'm trying to cover too much at once. So anyway, there was a medicine man who had this vision that after 10 years of being suppressed and held onto the reservations, they this medicine man had a vision that if they danced this dance called the ghost dance, they would restore the power of the Indian people. So they started to dance this, and they would dance endlessly, and it was very powerful. Now, the US government became frightened of this because they thought they had successfully suppressed the Indian people, and they were afraid that they were coming back. And they still had things such as weapons and rifles for hunting, but since they were on a reservation and the buffalo had been slaughtered, so they would starve and be forced to stay on the reservations. Anyway, a reservation up north called Standing Rock, which has become recently famous. Sitting Bull was there, and they saw Sitting Bull as a hero and a person who had enough power and influence to actually cause his people to rise up again against the government. He had been the architect behind the Battle of Little Bighorn with Custer.
David, excuse me.
I can get too deep.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we get to the art. So
Okay.
as you're telling the story, could you also reference some of the things in this painting?
Yes.
So go ahead.
This is a medicine man who is holding up the pipe. Now, the pipe is the center of their religion. It's not that they did drugs, because all they smoked was actually sage, which they call the yellow, what do they call that? Sweetgrass. And they believe that smoking this grass in this pipe in a ceremonial way, they were breathing the breath of the Great Spirit. In which I smoked this sacred pipe at one point later on. So this medicine man is holding up the pipe. That's the whole center of their religion. So surrounding him, there is George Custer, and there is Sitting Bull. Custer was killed in 1876. The people were on a reservation for years. Sitting Bull was the leader of the forces at the Custer battle, and he had a vision where he saw cavalrymen falling out of the sky, and this inspired the warriors to believe that they could beat Custer, which they did. Uh, so
Now tell us about, you have words in the painting along with the images. Right over here, for example, what is this Wonkin Tonka? What?
Wakantanka is the name for the Great Spirit,
Mm.
who in Native American. I call them Indians. People call them, you know, Indians call themselves Indians. Anyway, Wakantanka is in Lakota. Is the name of God.
Mm.
Wakan means holy, and Tonka means person. So it means Wakantanka means holy or sacred person. So the center of all their religion gives homage and prayers to and connection to the Great Spirit. So for instance, well, this is a later story. When I was in jail, arrested well, we'll get to that later. These old Indian men were talking, and this guy said, spoke in Lakota, a white man, he's an ex-Vietnam veteran, and they said, "Oh, hippie tonk, Where did you learn Lakota?" He said, "I learned it in the army." I figured out later he was the spy.
Mhm.
So anyway,
Now, David,
now there's a couple of words here
yeah,
too.
what is that
Heyoka.
Heyoka?
Heyoka is a type of medicine man who they would do everything backwards, and they're reversing everything created a kind of power, and their power also came from lightning. They believed that lightning, and that's sort of one of my theories about the spiritually great entity we call God. Electricity has a lot to do with that, with to my concepts of what God is. I mean, I believe in God.
Mm-hmm.
So um, was it Heyoka was the Lakota war cry spelled backwards. Hoka Hey was their war cry, which meant today is a good day to die.
Oh,
So Heyoka
wow.
was the reverse of that. And the Heyokas would do things such as put their hands in boiling water and say how cold it was, for instance, or they would walk backwards. Or they would say yes for no, or they would wear their clothes inside out. And they also were known as sacred clowns. And part of their role was that when everybody was happy, they sort of would balance moods. So they would bring in kind of a darkness to things. Or if everybody was depressed, they would do comical, crazy things to lighten people's spirit. So, for instance, Hayoko medicine men would, like if there was a mud puddle, or this was an instance, they jumped in a mud puddle and would pretend to swim. They were like sacred clowns, but they were very wise. And I had some experiences with um, actual medicine men. And one of the paintings here is, which we will see over here, is a man holding 13 feathers. And we were in
Okay, let's hold that to the painting,
okay,
okay, Dave?
okay.
Um, I just want to say something about this painting. What I love about it, in addition to the all the symbolism, is the way you painted all of these patterns and the way these red dots almost start to remind me of like bullets or bullet holes, or like the way just only the red ones are dripping here and there.
Mhm.
It's very subtle. And then you have all of these patterns. You have stripes, you have these beautiful circles, and and the sun is like incredible.
Mhm.
And most of your paintings are filled with these patterns. It's like there's no open space. When how did this develop, or what do you just love? Like, why do you put so many
It's hard
patterns?
for me to say. I mean, I've been looking back at a lot of older work and realizing I've been doing this kind of pattern building. I had a teacher when I went to Buffalo State, and he talked about intuitive pattern making. That just given no instruction, someone would instinctively make patterns. And not that I was thinking of his words, but now these words come back to me. This is back from 1958. So people say, oh, you have this horror vacui, which means horror of empty spaces. But, um, I kind of, when I'm working, I kind of surrender to not being directed. It just sort of flows out of me. Once you get to that point where you open up that door, the painting paints itself.
Hmm. Yeah, a lot of artists have said that. Um, Jackson Pollock said, I let the painting lead, right?
Hmm.
Hildolf Klimt said, the force moves through me, right?
Right,
Even Michelangelo said the figure was already in the marble,
right,
right?
right.
And when that just clicks, that's the joy of creating.
Sure.
So let's go into this room. Now,
Okay.
this room, by the way, that I'm standing in, that we're standing in, this would have been used by Pollock and Lee as a showcase for Pollock's work, which is why it's rather empty, right? And this back room here would have been used as a parlor. And we're going to focus, there's 13 paintings altogether of this series that are all the same
Well,
size,
they're not,
David.
the 13 are not completed yet. I still have four more to do in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
I had a lot of wild experience. The next painting I want to do is when the federal government said, if you don't surrender, we are going to come in and kill you all.
Mm-hmm.
And to emphasize this, they flew a B-52 less than 1,000 feet off the ground right over us and said, you think you can mess with us?
Okay. Now tell people, because let's focus back on the art, but I also would like you to explain your own personal story as it relates to Wounded Knee. But can we use this painting as a springboard
Well,
for that?
this is the start of the series, which I started in 1982, and it depicts my being arrested. We were trying to bring food into Wounded Knee. Now, we were on another reservation, the Rosebud Reservation, which was not under martial law. And so when we were on the Pine Ridge Reservation, the government had proclaimed martial law. So we were trying to bring food in, and we had been betrayed. Our mission was compromised. So they were waiting for us, and this group of people who were known as the Goon Squad, who were this private army of this corrupt president. Now,
Okay, and hang on, just so I want to make sure the viewers can see this, because there's a little glare. These people are the Goon
the
Squad.
Goon Squad, yeah.
Hmm. And
So
tell us the hands.
the hands are me.
Hmm.
Um, we were chased for 10 miles. Um, this woman to the right of us, Martina was her name. She wanted to start shooting at these people. And we knew that we would be wiped out if that began because they were much more heavily armed than we were. We only had one rifle. So we throw the rifle out while driving around a curve, and we were finally arrested in a town called Porcupine. So this is our arrest at Porcupine, which was actually our final destination anyway. And we were attempting to, break through the perimeter of that the federal government had surrounded Wounded Knee with because they were enforcing and backing up the tribal president, the federal government instituted a different way of Native Americans choosing their leadership. The traditional chiefs and way they would choose it was overridden by having a tribal president, having an American form of government.
Mhm.
So
Now, Let me
It gets
ask
very
you,
complicated, I
yeah,
know.
let me ask you something. When did you create this painting in relationship to the event itself?
The event happened in 1973. I started this painting in 1982 when I was living in California.
So is there anything in particular that triggered you to make or inspired you to make the painting at that time, 10 years later?
Well, the government really totally suppressed all knowledge of this rebellion, uh, which was really more of a civil war than anything else. And the traditionals who were being suppressed by this man named Dick Wilson were being murdered by his goon squad, these men who are up on the top of this painting. So I always had this idea that I wanted to record this and actually bring this information outside of this press blackout.
Mhm.
So that's really what started the series. Um, so
And tell us a little bit, you had mentioned before, David, that you want to bring awareness, but also your own personal trauma around the event and your need to paint this narrative.
well, I found out, I realized a while ago that my paintings were really autobiographical and that I was recording, instead of writing my memoirs, I was painting my
Mm.
memoirs.
And did you find in the process of making these paintings, did you find that it was healing, so to speak? Did you find some relief from the trauma of this event?
Yes, it was.
Mhm.
And I didn't even admit that I had the trauma. I mean, it was only kind of at certain points that someone said to me, "Oh, yeah, you're coping with your PSTD." And I go, "What? PSTD?" And then I thought, well, yeah, I guess I did have PSTD.
PTSD.
PTSD. Okay.
So, but I understand. I totally understand. And sometimes it manifests in different ways. So let's take a look at this one over here.
Okay. Now, this is a painting that my most recent painting, and this is done during this period of time that I had received a grant from the Pollock-Krasner Foundation to continue this series. And this series started in 1982, and periodically over time I had worked on it, but I had not worked on it, but now this is a revival of that time. So the church is where the resistance made its center. There were many people, many of the Native Americans were Vietnam veterans. And so they dug bunkers and dug in and fortified this church. And they also declared the independent Oglala Nation, which meant the traditionals who were being systematically murdered saw themselves as a separate nation. So anyway, there's a circle in the center here. When I was arrested, trying to break through this perimeter, um, we were under arrest at a roadblock, and these soldiers here are actually United States Marshals. And that thing with the white star is actually an armored personnel carrier. There was like 15 of them surrounding me. And there were firefights there all the time. Now, you would think that 250,000 rounds of ammunition being fired would be newsworthy. There was a complete press blackout.
Wow.
And people now do not know that this event even actually happened. They were afraid it was going to mushroom into a larger movement
Mhm.
because whites were college students, et cetera, were showing up to defend and support this takeover, led by Russell Means, Dennis Banks, and Clyde Bellecourt.
Yeah.
So this is, to the right is me under arrest, handcuffed, a woman I was in the back seat of a car with, had these zip ties on her. She cuffed with these zip ties. She figured out a way to get it off, held it up in the air, laughed, smiled and took the bullets out of her pocket and shoved them back in the seat so that she wouldn't be arrested with these bullets.
Yeah, there's a lot of details, which maybe people can't see at home. The two bullets are in her hand right
Correct.
here. And David, I love the way in this one, well, I love everything about it, but I love the way you told the narrative. You have sort of like different time scenes going on in one painting.
Right.
So you have this from a different point of view. It's interesting how you painted the soldiers actually from behind. So it's almost like the soldiers' viewpoint attacking.
Well, had I made it through the perimeter, I would have been out there between the soldiers and the church, and given the opportunity, they would have shot me.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing with the parachute was a flare, came down slowly and illuminated the whole area. So it was brighter than daytime,
Mm-hmm.
and they could see perfectly clearly. So when it got dark, we were to crawl in slowly and make it inside of here. But we were chased on the way there and arrested, and this is us under arrest. Now the rest of this comes from a AP photo. The first day of the takeover, a helicopter flew over. All of these cars are members of the American Indian movement who showed up, and they're all armed. There's one man here, he's actually taking a shot at the
Mhm.
now,
Okay.
I wasn't there for this photograph. This is just a reference of the site of their
Mhm.
taking over.
Mhm. And where did you get the photo?
From a newspaper.
Oh, from a newspaper. Okay.
There's been several photos like this, but
Okay, I want to just take a break for a moment to check in. Can everybody hear? Is the sound okay? If not, please unmute and tell us. Okay, Kristen says it's okay. Just wanted to make sure.
okay.
And David, you're doing a great job. Should we
Thank you.
take a break for a couple of questions or you want to continue?
We can take a couple of questions.
Okay, how about this? So far, are there any questions? Okay, then we will continue our tour and we'll ask again. So there are 13 of these paintings.
Plan. There's only 9 that actually exist at this moment.
Oh, so you're still
still-
working.
I'm still
It's
working on the
amazing.
series.
David.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really amazing. So what would you like to show us next?
Let's go into this room, and I mentioned Henry's Prodog was a Heyoka, as was Sitting Bull. Sitting Bull was a Heyoka. Now this round canvas.
Okay, let's take a closer look.
Okay. This round canvas is
Yeah, you can go.
from a photograph, but I was in
Will you stand
Okay,
up here?
sure.
Thank you, David.
I was in a sweat lodge ceremony, which is one of the sacred rites of the Lakota. We were being prepared to go into battle because the federal government said, oh, after 71 days of having almost daily firefights and planes coming in trying to, drop supplies by planes, people being wounded running out to pick up those supplies. But when the federal government said you have to surrender, we were being prepared to go into battle against the U.S. Marshals. So we're in a sweat lodge ceremony. This man is a Heyoka medicine man. I saw him perform certain miracles. For instance, I had an amulet, and I'm in the sweat lodge, and I asked him to bless. You address the medicine man as grandfather, because he is standing there almost as a surrogate for the Great Spirit. So I said, grandfather, bless my medicine. And medicine means magic. It means both healing and magic. So he said, touch the stones. The red hot stones I touched were ice cold. Now, the other piece that was incredible was Henry Crow Dog was known for being able to summon eagles. So when we left the sweat lodge, in a very tight circle over the sweat lodge, there were 7 eagles circling.
Oh, which are right here.
Yes, this is them up there. and he was known for being able to summon eagles. So this, a lot of medicine men were accused of using trickery and things. They would have ceremonies in the dark, and there would be sparking lights, and they said, oh, well, they were using used up cigarette lighters to spark. Well, there's a lot of illusionism in showbiz and business in some of their moves, but uh, how can you fake getting seven eagles to circle over a
Mhm.
specific spot? So anyway, we were being prepared to go in for a final showdown with the feds. Uh, they said, you think you can mess with us? They flew a B-52 over Crow Dog's paradise. Now, where I spent most of my time was off the Pine Ridge Reservation. It was a support camp, and that we did various things. We made certain. We set up a base camp on the border, and we had riflemen on the roof, and a police car comes up, sees us, goes, "What are you guys doing?" Or he didn't say that. So we just chase him. I mean, so it's a pretty wild feeling to chase a police car and make them run away from you.
I'm
So
sure.
anyway, and also we had to butcher a steer. Now the steer was already dead, but we had to cut it up. So they're saying you're going in to do harm to people,
Mm,
and
I
so
see.
so in the sweat lodge. There were, several white people. There were weathermen, American political group, who had trained with the IRA, and they had their own weapons, and we were going to assault the feds.
Wow.
So, but the elders said there's been already too much bloodshed. There were several deaths, and so that mission was called off. But
Mm.
Henry Crow, you can actually, if you look him up on YouTube. There are some YouTubes of him talking, and
Is he still alive?
no, he died.
And what is this, David? A shield?
Well, this is a symbol of an Indian view of the world. They saw the world being like a turtle, and the turtle was very important to them. And one of the reservations up north that Leonard Pelletier came from was called Turtle Mountain. So the turtle, the bumps of the turtle, they see that as an image of the earth, of the world. So
This painting is so beautiful, the patterns. Why did you decide to make it in a circle? Any reason?
because Arlene Boucher gave me a round canvas.
Oh, okay. I love that because sometimes artists, there's all these explanations of like why and sometimes it's a random thing like,
What's
yeah,
available.
but I love the round canvas. It's beautiful.
And this is actually from a photograph of this man that was published in a book.
It's really beautiful.
And this interview was very interesting. I mean, he speaks English. He doesn't even call it English. He says, when I talk American,
Calls it-
the traditionals were still speaking Lakota,
Yeah.
and they were separate and kept their original spiritual practices.
Mm,
And this guy, Dick Wilson, was suppressing them, killing them.
mm.
Something like 300 people were killed by the Goon Squad, which stood for the Guardians of the Oglala Nation,
Oh,
GOON.
wow. Okay. So what about these paintings here?
Okay,
Which one do you want to speak
I'll
about
talk
next?
about this one because this is one of the men who was killed
Can you go a little closer, Dave?
during a firefight.
We'll
I
move the
mean,
chair. Hang
the
on.
feds were firing 50 caliber machine guns.
Go a little closer.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
They were firing 50 caliber machine guns at the defenders of Wounded Knee. So this man was hit with a bullet. He had only been there for one day. He came from North Carolina. He was a Cherokee. And the back of his head was gone. And in his hands, he's holding a peyote button. Now, peyote is the sacrament of the Native American Church. Um, it's totally legal. Clinton passed a law about the freedom of religion. And so they are entitled to have peyote.
Hmm.
Now, peyote is, people say, it's just another drug. The hippies having another drug. But peyote is something very different. And you actually experience God when you
Hmm.
eat peyote. So he's holding a peyote button. And these are two different stories, actually. Uh, One of these is this is the widow of this man. And they would not shake hands with any white men coming through because they thought, well, he could be the one who killed
Mm.
my husband. So this is also a ceremony. During this time, I was designated to be the fire keeper. I built fires, and keeping the fire going was a part of the spiritual observance of this man's death. Now, a lot of things happened with this funeral. They wanted to bury him on the Pine Ridge Reservation. There was this caravan of cars that were going to this place called Frank Fool's Crow, who was a traditional chief. He had no recognition by the American, government, but we were stopped by a group of FBI agents, and this is another painting I would like to do, holding shotguns on these old women. Say, turn back. We're not allowing this. So we had to turn back. So we had the ceremonies at Crow Dogs. And so here, this spoon right here is a spoon of peyote. So I ate some peyote, as did everyone else. Um,
That's an incredible, this is such a beautiful painting. And you also added the words, which I just want you to see, anyone on Zoom, of what David just narrated. There's also words, they would not shake the white man's hand, to support the visual narrative. And did you work from any photos on this one?
no, this is just from memory.
And I'm curious, David, how did the native people, did they ever see any of these paintings, or did you ever follow
I
up?
never did. And
How do you think they would react, if you could imagine?
well, I didn't know because there was such paranoia, and this was the government's strategy, was to create such paranoia that you thought you kept looking over your shoulder. Who's the spy? Who's the secret Fed? The man who I went on the mission trying to pack food in was a Vietnam veteran. He had a fatigue jacket on, and I thought, well, I'm with a bunch of college students. As things start to get heavy, I'd like to be around somebody who knows what they're doing. Now,
Mm.
I finally figured out he was the spy.
Oh, wow.
So later on, when I went to Minneapolis, see, as a result of this arrest, I said I am not ready to go to a federal penitentiary and be locked up with a bunch of psychopaths. So I jumped bail and I just went on the run. I spent 4 months thinking I was a fugitive. And so I can't remember so I went, anyway, this guy says, no, the trial is going on of the main people, Dennis Banks and Russell Means in St. Paul, Minnesota. So I hitchhiked in the middle of winter time, January, to Minnesota, and thinking I'd be out there in a trench with a rifle, but instead, I spent 2 years there. And I, went to the trial, uh, worked with the Wounded Knee Committee. And this is people who are from on that committee.
And
Uh,
how did you work with the Wounded Knee Committee?
well, I just volunteered. I was there. They had an office in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Mhm.
So we are taking a break, actually smoking, not the sacred pipe, we're smoking a little marijuana. Um, and so these are just cars going by. This is the Mississippi River. This woman was her name was Minnie Two Shoes, which sounds almost like a made-up name. And this woman's name was Marlene Burgess, who I had a relationship with for a while.
Mhm. And what does that say in the text?
Now on each one of these paintings, I took a quote from a Kerouac novel. Now Kerouac was a Mohawk Indian,
Oh,
Iroquois.
really?
Well, I mean, he was partially, he was not, full blood, but so I noticed that in all of his novels, there was always some kind of reference to Native Americans. So this is a passage from the Subterraneans, and it's very detailed. Um, it's a long passage. Some were less detailed than that. There's one where the only word from Kerouac was ho, H-O-O. Now, everyone thinks of Indians going, how? They weren't saying how, they were saying ho. And that was like an affirmation. So during meetings there, they would always form themselves in a circle, traditional way, the sacred circle. And when someone said something they'd agree with, you'd hear several people say, ho, ho, ho. And so that reference was in one of Kerouac's novels. I went through a whole phase of reading Kerouac because before I was a beatnik, I mean, before I was a hippie, I was a beatnik. And I discovered Jack Kerouac, and he was my hero. But his alcoholism ultimately killed him, and part of the belief system of the American Indian movement, AIM, was sobriety because alcohol was so totally devastating people,
Yeah.
as it did with Pollock and everybody
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. Now we have three paintings on this end. Can we take a
Okay.
look at those? Any questions, anybody? Thoughts? Okay. So
I may have missed it, but are these acrylic or oils?
oh, no, that's a very good question, Les. Tell us about the material, David. Hang on.
Well, the ones I'm talking about that are all the same size are oil. But I became allergic to oil. I would have a very bad reaction when I was using oil paint. So the later ones are acrylics.
I do notice in some of the oil paintings, like the ones we were just looking at, it almost looks like watercolor, like it looks stained. Do you always prime the canvas or you let some of it, sometimes you use the paint very thin?
I usually start out with the paint very thin, and then it builds up to a thicker
Hmm.
layer. Or
Yeah, they're really beautiful. So which one do you want to speak
well,
about?
I'll say one more. This is another painting about the sweat lodge ceremony. And here again are the seven eagles circling overhead. This is a sweat lodge, and it's a purification ceremony that were you to die, you sort of balance your karma, or so that's before we were going in, we wanted to be as spiritually clean, I guess, as possible. We have had to die. Uh, but we very, very much thought we were going to die fighting
Really?
the feds.
You're
So,
brave.
well,
What is your
Yeah.
very few people, in my opinion, would do what you did. So can you tell us a little bit about,
why I did that?
yeah, was it something, what,
Well, see, I was very politically active at one point. Um, when I was 25 years old, I had gotten a job in England teaching art in England, but I had to wait several months. So I got a job in a steel plant, and I spent about 4 months working in this steel plant. But if you leave the country, you're supposed to check in with your draft board. So I went to my draft board and told them that I was going to leave the country. And when I went there, this man jumps up, he has like blood in his eye. He goes, "You're 25. We can't touch you in another year. We're going to draft you." So but they said nothing about that I couldn't leave the country. So I left the country, and I said, "Well, I've been married for 2 years. Uh, we would want to have a family." So anyway, my wife got pregnant. And that what kind of kept me out of the draft and going to Vietnam. But I had always grown up thinking that I was a warrior because my uncle was in the Battle of the Bulge. I was a child of World War II. Matter of fact, I think in a previous life I was killed in World War II. So I still had this feeling. My first career choice for years was I want to be a soldier.
Huh, interesting, David.
So anyway, so I felt that here it is, I am a soldier. Now a soldier accepts the facts that they may die.
Mm.
They conquer this fear of death. And I believe that we don't die anyway. I believe in reincarnation. I believe in the spirit world, call it heaven, whatever, however you want to phase it. So, but I also at that time was thinking, I was disturbed about, well, I may have to kill people. And, I wasn't really keen on that idea. Had at one time in my life had to fight for my life with a man holding a gun on me. And I went from being a flower child to saying, well, I was trying to kill him. So all of these things added up to me being kind of conflicted because I didn't want to. The way I kind of rationalized me killing some of these marshals was, well, I won't kill them, but if they try to stop me from my goal, I may be forced to do that. So it was a real conflict in my mind. I don't want to kill anybody. I never have killed anybody, but so that was part of the conflict of
Yeah.
being there.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we have two paintings in this corner. So would you tell us about this one?
This is a painting that uses two published photographs. Now, this man, I met him in jail. When I was in jail, his name is Oscar Bear Runner, and he was also arrested for the same thing that I was arrested for, which was trying to get food into Wounded Knee. He was a World War II veteran, and this is a published photograph in uh, can't even think of his name right now. Russell Means biography, but he's inside Wounded Knee. He's guarding the TP. And this is a photograph of U.S. Marshals. When you think of marshals, you think of, cowboy hat and a big badge, or a big star. These are marshals going into Wounded Knee, and these are actually newspaper headlines. Still winning the West on Bigfoot Trail. This was a published photograph.
Wow.
We will change their lifestyle.
Oh, that was a published headline?
Yeah, this was a headline in the newspaper.
Oh, wow.
And then this man, Jim Money, who was supposedly a journalist, was actually working for the government. And there was a photograph published of him riding on an armored personnel carrier carrying an M16 rifle. So we knew he was working for the government. He was not a neutral journalist.
Mm.
So anyway, this one is, as we were being prepared to go in, we received an ID card saying we were members of the American Indian movement. So that, when we got inside, we would not be considered spies. Now, there was a spy who was outed inside a Wounded Knee, and this was Easter. This was the night before Easter. And so these daily firefights would take place. So what they did is they crucified this spy. They didn't kill him, but they put him up there, and they called up the feds on the radio, said, okay, you guys want to get it on, which meant you want to have a firefight. So the feds didn't fire. I found this out later, but when I was in jail, these marshals came over and were yelling, hey, what are you guys doing? You wanted to kill one of our people. And then I went in and was interviewed by an FBI agent. And this guy was cold as ice. I mean, talk about an American Gestapo.
Mm.
I mean, he was cold as ice, this this man. So, but anyway, this was just preparing us to go into Wounded Knee. So we were being registered. This was at Crodos. But I thought that the pistol and the baby bottle kind of symbolized the whole story, of these people were trying to preserve their life, their families, the continuity of themselves as spiritual people.
What is this, David?
That was that I just saw that as a spirit.
It's so
It actually
beautiful.
was a piece of cloth that I found that my friend Aliska had made a shirt, and this was sort of a scrap left over. But
Wow.
artists see something and it can become a symbol for something else.
Or sometimes, were there any things like you don't know why you put it in the painting, but you just put it in there?
No, I knew why. I wanted it to be kind of a spirit thing, and I just thought it was a beautiful object. When I'm working on a painting, at first I'm doing conscious things. I'm going to do this, I'm going to add this, make that darker. And so I I fall into, I go from the right hemisphere, the left hemisphere, which is the thinking, reasoning side of your brain, to the left hemisphere, and I go to the right hemisphere. And in that part of the brain, the painting is making the choices. The visual world is making its choices. Ideas start popping into your head. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we discussed that a lot on Zoom. Anyone have any questions for David? Any thoughts? Anyone relate to any of the, even though maybe you weren't in a situation at Wounded Knee or arrested for helping Native Americans, anybody relate with the story or bring it up to date or even inspired in any way for your own narrative or anything that's going on nowadays? Any connections? I'll give you a second to think.
Well, persecution, of course, because and taking away the land and the rights and all of that. I mean, there's no respect for Native Americans in administrative dealings at the moment. I that's my opinion. My opinion.
And Colleen?
That Democracy Now channel, I think it's YouTube or it's some sort of media coverage. They have just recently interviewed Leonard Peltier, and he speaks about that he doesn't want Trump to reverse the pardon that Biden gave him.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Well, interesting. Can I make a comment here?
Of course.
Leonard Peltier has been released from jail, but on his birthday, he had a press conference and he was talking about Wounded Knee, which he was not there for it actually. He became a defender of the traditionals who were still being murdered by Dick Wilson. He was part of the American Indian movement, and he talked about how helpful the hippies were. So I always felt this series was, here's a white man, I don't call myself an Indian, uh, who is talking about things that I was afraid I would be attacked for exploiting their culture, So that's been my concern about this series. I always felt that being a honky sometimes, who's taking our culture, who wants to make money off our culture. Now, these paintings are not for sale. I want to finish this series, and I would love to have them displayed in a museum situation, perhaps the Smithsonian, because they have their, and I'm sort of trying to make contact with the Smithsonian's Institute of Native American Affairs. So that's always been my hang up about this series.
That's a really good issue you brought up. And we can leave that as a question. We were talking about this yesterday. I did a talk about censorship in art. There was an artist, Dana Schutz, and she used a photograph of Emmett Till, the black teenager who was murdered, and the photograph of him in the casket. She used that for a painting, which was shown at the Whitney Museum. And
She got attacked.
she got a lot of criticism from some members of the Black community for appropriating a photograph
Right.
when she's not even Black and
Right.
using it for her own gain.
Right.
But she said, I'm a mother and I relate with the story as a mother, even though I'm not Black. And she didn't take the painting down or anything like that. But it's a question, it gives rise to a question and something for us to think about. And that's one of the purposes of art. It makes us dig a little deeper into our humanity, right? And our role in each other's lives, right? As human beings, stepping across a line and helping a group where you're not maybe directly part of the group, but you're part of the group because you're a human being.
Well, for a long time, I thought I would give this to the Oglala people. Now, all those people who were there, most of them are now dead. And I got a Pollock-Krasner grant based on the premise that I wanted to finish this series. So part of my proposal, I said, well, I want to go back out to Pine Ridge Reservation and do some drawings and take photographs. But that situation, the volatility of it, the Civil War aspects of it, there are still goon squad peoples out there. And I could visualize myself sitting out on the prairie doing a nice drawing and all of a sudden getting shot. So I didn't go. Because Pine Ridge Reservation is the poorest municipality in the United States. The average life expectancy of a man there is 43 years old. It has the highest rate of teenage suicides.
Oh my goodness, Dave.
Because this tribal president was taking all the money that was supposed to go to the reservation, schools, hospitals, roads, and he was keeping it for himself and giving it out to the goon squad as well. So, but I kind of had to reassess where do I want this series to go? And I would like this to go intact. None of these paintings are for sale. I've already had people approach me and say, hey, I'd like to buy a painting. I said, well, these paintings are not for sale.
Yeah, you want to keep this together as a group.
Yes. Now, at some point, I might think about that, but, I want to finish the series because I feel like I'm bringing this knowledge of this ghost event to the larger world.
Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday too, about activism. And one aspect of activism is not just to protest and donate and things like that. It's to educate. Education is a huge aspect of activism. And in a sense, these paintings educate. I learned so much today.
Wow.
Things I wasn't even aware of, right? Because like you said, the media suppresses a lot of these kinds of stories. So the role of the artist is to bring that forth, just like Picasso with Guernica, right? He was highlighting this atrocity. We are going to close now unless anybody has a burning desire for a question or a comment. We have a few minutes. Okay. First, I want to thank David Slater, amazing artist.
Just thought of something. Can I interject?
Of course.
If you took peyote and you saw God, why don't you paint that image?
Good question,
Well,
Laz.
I did in certain paintings as a reference to when I went to the spirit world, I saw Crazy Horse and I saw Lincoln.
But have you painted the dreamscapes?
No, because they were when I came back to consciousness, my next image that I saw under the influence of peyote was this man, Buddy Lamont, being machine gunned by the feds. So, I don't presume to say I could portray the Great Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen, the Great Spirit or God in various forms. But, what I saw when I was in my deep state of having transcended and left this world and gone to the spirit world, um, okay, I do have a little reference to, uh, let's see, which one he has it in. Um, I do have a little miniature cameo of Lincoln and Crazy Horse.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these are images of the Great Spirit
Mm-hmm.
in my mind.
Yeah, actually, this is just my own personal inclination, not obviously everybody has their own way of thinking about spirituality and God, but I see God in these paintings
Oh, thank you.
because I see compassion. So that's how I feel. David is illustrating compassion by caring, by putting his life on the line for other human beings, by being so brave. And then by taking that and finding meaning in that event, in that history, in that trauma, and finding meaning through art. So I think you already showed us God. That's just my opinion.
Thank you. I love that.
And I know as a professional, maybe I'm not supposed to mention God or my opinion, but that's my own personal way of looking at this.
Well,
So
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. Thank you, Joyce.
people always see Indians as talking about the Great Spirit, which they do, but they will also equally talk about the great mystery. In other words, we don't know. We have beliefs and thoughts, but we will only know when we get there.
mhm,
And I do think we do survive death. This body we have is just a vehicle taking us through this lifetime. Now, people always would say things to me like, "Oh, you're an old spirit." I never knew what that meant. Well, that I read a definition of that maybe I've lived 80 lives already,
mhm,
and that I'm going on to my next life or my next, I might be something entirely different. I might be a woman. You're not, the soul is genderless. We're
mhm,
not a male forever. We're not a female forever. We're all of these things.
mhm,
And Kabbalah talks about the duality of, uh, masculine and feminine.
mhm,
And, patriarchal religions say, oh, God is a man, of course. So, I don't believe that. I think we are both male and female.
mhm.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, that's
Thank you, David.
okay.
And everybody, really, David, thank you for your generosity in coming to the Pollock House. And I'm saying we, at the Pollock House, as well as in the Springs community where the house is situated, and you live in the Springs, all of the artists, the whole community here is so happy that David has this show. And we celebrated his art. We're all so happy for you,
Oh,
not just as an artist, but as a person,
thank you.
and always has a story, which is great.
Gift of gab.
Gift of gab.
Talking and I can't shut up.
Me too. So anyway, everybody have a wonderful day or afternoon.
I just quickly wanted to add, if I could, the indigenous way, like I'm also finding my way back because I was 60s scoop and raised by settlers. But
And
like
you
I'm,
are Indigenous Canadian, correct?
yes,
Yeah.
yes, biologically, but I was raised by non-biological settler parents through the foster care system. So I was somewhat acculturated, but in my spirit, in my DNA, I am indig.
Which particular nation?
It's called Peter Ballantine Cree Nation. It's at Pelican Narrow, Saskatchewan.
Uh-huh.
It's right on the Churchill River system. They're fishers and hunters and
Uh-huh. I have a friend who's Cree, which is a Canadian.
yeah, we're Cree.
Oh, you're
That
Cree?
would be our language. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's
I
different
just talking to a
dialects.
Cree friend of mine, 2 days ago.
Awesome. And then there's different dialects of Cree. We're called the TH dialect. But anyway, I just wanted to add that after the death thing, like we receive signals from animals, like frequently my biological mother comes to me in the form of an eagle. So,
Mhm.
like the eagles tend to come north in May and they're worldwide. And that's why they're a great spirit. And but when I need a warning now, it seems to be if there's going to be sort of a trying hardship time that's really going to press me to my patience reserves or whatever,
Uh-huh.
the eagle will come and warn me ahead of time.
Mm.
And it's almost like my maternal mother spirit, my biological mother, that I only was with her for 6 months, but she hasn't abandoned me spiritually. She will come and warn me in the form of an eagle and let me know it's going to be a trying, next 24, 48 hours, but everything is going to be okay in the long run. So
Mhm.
she kind of reassures me, but it's also kind of a warning.
Wow,
Well,
that's beautiful, Colleen.
the eagle is also one of my totem animals
Yeah.
when I see an eagle, and there's eagles here which came back, the eagles had been pretty much wiped out. But when I see an eagle, I know I'm with the spirit. I'm going in the right direction.
Mhm. I'll tell you what, everybody, we're going to end. And if you'd like to visit the Pollock House, you can go to pkhouse.org and sign up for a tour to see the exhibition in person. And again, thank you to David, and thank you all of you for coming.